Hi, everyone. Well, today's episode on parenting without power struggles is a powerful one. It's a very special one to me. It's a conversation I had with a very dear friend, someone I've known for over 50 years, Rabbi Michael Zedek, talking about his book, Some People Like. And, have a listen because we're talking about the power of story and values and how to help our children not just by what we tell them, but and of course how we live, but how to kind of inspire and reassure and uplift them to move through the world with more tolerance, kindness, grace, compassion. So I hope you enjoy it. Of course, there's lots of episodes in this series with all kinds of wonderful people, and you can find out more about my work at susanstiffelman.com, including over 50 master classes on every topic under the sun related to raising children with the most terrific people, wise people, interesting people, smarter than me for sure. And we have a lot of fun sharing deep dives into topics like anxious kids or chores or siblings. So check out everything available to you at susanstiffelman.com. And of course, you can sign up for my newsletter and find out about our Parenting Without Power Struggles membership, where I support parents twice a month with real personal coaching and co-parenting with a narcissist for those of you in need of that kind of monthly help. Let's get started. Here is the podcast. Here's the episode. I loved it, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Lots of stories, and then I'll come back for the wrap up. Hi, everyone, and hello, Rabbi Michael Zedek. Hello, hello. Such a huge treat to see you here.
So far, it is for me too.
I think it will be. Before I read you Michael's bio, I will disclose that we have known one another for over 50 years, maybe even, yeah,
Yeah, at least. I came in
like,
1974. Yeah.
yeah, so a long time. And Michael Rabbi Zedek has been floating in the background of my life for all of my remembered life and has done such amazing work in the world. I'm going to read you. Michael Zedek is Rabbi Emeritus of two congregations, B'nai Yehuda in Kansas City and Emmanuel Congregation of Chicago. In September 2021, Michael became rabbi in residence at St. Paul School of Theology, where he's a respected teacher and community ambassador. Rabbi Zedek frequently speaks on themes related to spirituality in countries including South Africa, Israel, Russia, Poland, and the former Yugoslavia, Thailand, Italy, and has a significant profile in the interfaith community, serving as founder and host of Religion on the Line, which is a lively radio program that recently finished a 29-year run. He's the author of the beautiful book, Taking Miracles Seriously, A Journey to Everyday Spirituality, and also this most recent book, People Are Like, which I got a copy of it and right away I texted you and said, please come on my podcast. Thank you. No, we hold it longer. Hold it up longer. Don't be shy here. Like, it's just a precious book.
Oh, thank you.
And I right away, the reason that I asked you to join me here is that we are living in a very interesting time and
Aren't you polite?
and values will save us. That's what I believe. And how do you communicate values to children and teens? We can speak about them, we can lecture them, we can scold them, we can send them to various faith organizations and services, but ultimately, it's really a day by day experience. How do we convey the values that are meaningful to us? And that's what I think this book is doing. And what you're doing here is you're teaching through metaphors, animals, objects, images that children can immediately relate to. So, first of all, let me just ask you, because I've heard you speak many times, and I know you are just an extraordinary storyteller. Why do you think story is such a great delivery system for sharing wisdom rather than telling people, here's what you should think and feel, believe?
I, First of all, Susan, thank you more than I can tell you for this opportunity. Whatever else happens, just the chance to be metaphorically face to face with you is a delight for me because it brings back tons of exquisite kinds of memories. including familial ones for both of us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that said, a preliminary to a response. Unquestionably, all of us are, to use a imprecise term, behaviorists, by which I mean we're way too busy watching others' hands and feet to pay any attention to what really comes out of our mouths. But if we're trying to convey values, in addition to the modeling of our own behaviors, which is the most critical
Right.
item, how do we keep track of what we want to do, what we're trying to avoid doing, and maybe get outflanked, et cetera, and therefore a call to do it? For me, it's stories. And I learned this in a very precise way. First, I don't think people remember essays or the homiletically boring, tedious stuff. They remember the illustration, the example. And for my entire rabbinical career, 51 years. How did that happen? I've been searching for what reminds me of the roadmap I need to navigate, and maybe on the assumption that I'm not totally sui generis, impacts others. In fact, I got a story about this.
Of course
Now
you
you're
do.
going to be shocked. I was teaching a class of 12 and 13-year-olds. For those who are familiar, that means they were studying for bar and bat mitzvah. And I tried very hard in my sermons not to repeat a story. If I did, it was some of you may remember, so I would get the people on my side. But I began to tell a story. It's about 1800 years old, and it's about the sages of Jewish tradition discussing should we or should we not go to the gladiatorial combats of ancient Rome. And as I'm sure you can imagine, the majority say we must stay away from such brutality. And a certain rabbi by the name of Rabbi Nathan, very minor character in the Talmud, opens his mouth for the first time. And the sages are amazed. What is he doing talking? And they say to him, Mahasiba, for those whose Aramaic is a little rusty, what is your reasoning? And he says, when the crowd shouts for the blood of the defeated gladiator and glows thumbs down, our job is to shout thumbs up. And I think what an exquisite job definition for all our lives, for whatever amount of life we possess, right? Because there's no shortage of evidence to say, give up, cynicism, despair, what the heck. But how do we shout and continue to insist that despite evidence to the contrary, I will be a voice to shout, yes, life, caring, commitment, embracing, moving forward. I think that story embodies it totally. And by the way, I think it's a job from which one never retires, no matter what one does for a living. Our life is to shout thumbs up, or at least to try. Now, that's the story, the backstory to that story. I was teaching it to these 12 and 13 years olds. I had used it 4 years earlier as the conclusion of a Yom Kippur morning service. Now, these kids were 8 years old at that time, right? They had no business paying attention to the sermon at that point. Several of them said, I remember that story. I remember that story. And that opened a whole window in my heart to say, stories are the key to how we can learn. This book grew out of one of my students saying, Rabbi, you got to put these stories in a book. Okay. Now, the illustrations, which I happen to love in the book, came about because, now, boy, immodesty is now on display. You ready? I was invited to audition for a TED Talk. And as you may be aware, they have their own distinct style and endless numbers of screeners you have to get through before you get to record a TED Talk. So the first screener says, send me what you're planning on talking about. And I record something and send it to him. He calls me up and says, it's a very interesting talk, but it's not a TED Talk. Let me send you some examples. So he sent me 3 examples of what he thought were TED Talk style. Now, I'm going to be egomaniacal for a second. Not one of the speakers was a better speaker than I. However, one of the talks was illustrated. I tracked down the illustrator. She's the person who did these illustrations. And
Oh,
I just think they're filled with whimsical quality
yes.
that engages anybody.
Ah, awesome. Yeah. That
And
story.
we've just exhausted our time, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. No, that story truly I'm going to be replaying that over and over in the next days, weeks, months, years, because there is so much in my heart that I want to see humans right the ship,
Ah,
be kind, respectful, listen to each other, respect each other's points of view, show compassion. And it does feel sometimes like we're shouting into the wind, but there are a
mhm,
lot of people holding their thumbs up, and it's a beautiful story that
I agree.
it's two
But
things. It inspires, but it also underscores the value of stories. So thank you.
you're welcome. By the way, it reminds me of a story. You got time for one more?
I that's today is story day.
By the way, some people say everything reminds me of a story because I tend to think in story. At least that's what I've lately discovered. There was a great theologian of the previous century by the name of Abraham Joshua Heschel. Do you know that name by any chance? No. For those who are listening, if you want to get one little book, it's a very small book, beautiful. It's called The Sabbath. And the essence of it is it's a cathedral in time. How we use our time is the truly sacred dimension in our lives, as opposed to building castles or homes or sanctuaries. At any rate, he tells a story is told about him. He was a very bright young person and the son of a great rabbi. He's being tutored, and the tutor and he are reading the story of the almost murder of Isaac by his father Abraham. And as the story is told, Abraham raises his knife to slay his son, and Heschel, 8 years old, breaks out in tears. And the teacher is nonplussed. My God, I'm going to lose my job. I caused the brilliant little student to cry. He says, Heschel, Heschel, why are you crying? An angel will stop the knife. Isaac will be spared. And Heschel, at 8 years old, says, yes, but what if the angel had come too late? And how I unpack that story, the word angel comes into English from the Greek word angelos, which is a translation of the Hebrew word malach, which means messenger. You don't have to have wings to be a messenger. All of us live a message. And as as I thought he said this, but in my first book, oh boy, am I filled with, it's almost like the Tonight Show with a plug.
Yeah.
My first book, Taking Miracles Seriously, A Journey to Everyday Spirituality, which is for adults for sure. I thought Heschel had said this, but I couldn't find where he said it, so maybe I said it. Perhaps we are messengers who have forgotten our message. And I think that the story, for example, thumbs up, reminds us that's the message we need to embody, live, act upon.
And how do we communicate that with our to our children, with our children?
Mhm.
We can, of course, as you said at the beginning, the strongest way we shape
Yeah.
and guide our children is by how we ourselves live in front of them. In one of my two books, I'll meet you. I can't raise you, but I can meet you. I think the name of one of the chapters was Live Like Your Kids Are Watching.
Ah,
And the whole premise of that was that they hear so much less from us than what they take in by how we live, how we treat a waiter, how we treat a telemarketer, how we treat our neighbor, how we, yes, we
for
lose our
sure.
cool every day. We aren't floating on water. We are humans and we're in the trenches and we're tired and crabby and get
Yep.
reactive. And that's the work that I do. And my support for parents is to help heal some of the places in us that are more tender. But to be able to have stories to share with our children or our
Mhm.
grandchildren, these spark these really honest, open,
Mhm.
authentic conversations. Let's talk about one of the stories. There's this beautiful story called the Diamond Story. And this king has a diamond that becomes scratched. And maybe you could just share a few highlights
Sure.
because, and then how you've seen this play out in parents, grandparents who have read it to their own
Yeah.
little ones.
Yeah. By the way, I know you're not going to be surprised. Before I respond to the question, I got a slight comment oh my goodness, why not be consistent? That is one of the things that I think no one could disagree with what you said about behavior being the true model. But in a world in which there's less, it seems at least, there's less and less opportunities for honest conversation, dialogue with our children, it
Right.
seems to me that stories
Yeah.
provide the
Yeah.
raw material to do that.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's
So, yeah. So as it were, the diamond story goes like this. Although the telling is more elaborate in the book. King has a of course, as a king, he has treasures. His most precious treasure, a diamond. He loves it. He's crazy about it. One day he discovers it has gotten a scratch on the surface. And in the story, I tell how it gets scratched, blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is he's horrified. His beautiful treasure, it's ruined. He offers a great reward to anyone who can restore it. And of course, because it's a diamond, they all fail to restore it. But a person comes forward and says, I can make it even more beautiful than it was before. Well, everyone else, why not? I'll let him go ahead. So he uses the scratch on the diamond as the stem for a rose he carves on the diamond. And the king is overjoyed because it's even more remarkable and unique. Now, all of us, you cannot live life without getting scars and tears and wounds. What do we do with them is the true question. And I think that opens up that door to it hurt. What can you do? Or to use a biblical reference, as it happens, you mentioned that I'm the rabbi in residence of the United Methodist Seminary, and we're studying Genesis together. And we just studied Jacob wrestling with whatever it is he wrestles with to become Israel. And he says, I use the Aramaic, so why not a little Hebrew? Ki im beirachtani. I will not let you go until you bless me. This has happened. What can I do now? And I think the world divides into why me versus what can I do nowers. And is there a possibility of moving us to the what can we do now? Because we cannot undo, but can we take a blessing from whatever has happened? Wounded healers are the best healers.
100,000%. I see the push inside of me, the sort of drive. And I know that it was birthed because of my own, I can't call
Mm-hmm.
it profound trauma. I was raised in a comfortable enough situation on the outside, but the work that I do, there's unquestionably is birthed out of known from the inside desires, needs, longings, and it's just such a beautiful message for kids because, of course, there's all this pressure to be perfect, to never, not to make a mistake. I want to shift a little bit because you've mentioned a couple of times, I have as well, that you are the rabbi in residence at the Methodist at the. Well, explain that to people because what you represent, which is this interfaith community building, and boy, oh
Yeah.
boy, could we be magnifying that right now. Wait, did you say you're a rabbi? Wait, did you say Methodist? Wait,
Yeah,
did you say
yeah.
Paul? So please, could you just take a slight detour and then I want to wrap up?
Oh, I'm happy to do so. Immodesty on display. When some folks that you would know back in Kansas City heard that Karen, my life partner, and I were looking at housing, they put together a little endowment for me to teach. And the location is St. Paul's School of Theology, United Methodist Seminary. They have a campus here where I am in Greater Kansas City and in Oklahoma City, by the way. And I've always thought religions were languages to the sacred, as I don't worship my religion. I see my Judaism as a way to, but not a monopoly on, holiness. And to me, that opens doors that include we don't have to see eye to eye in order to walk shoulder to shoulder. And for me, there are, it would be the equivalent of saying English isn't just better than French, it's the only language that's appropriate. English and French are two ways we communicate. And religions are similarly ways in which. What I find in my work at the seminary is that the students I'm working with who are future opinion leaders in a world that's not mine are enriched by what the Jewish tradition, which is the mother of their tradition, can bring to their own enrichment. And it's just been a joy.
And what you're speaking about and living really is something so elemental. It's just open-mindedness.
Uh,
It's
I'd love to think you're right, or that I don't recognize the places where I'm closed-minded.
The fact, this idea of dialogue, there's
Mm,
an organization I've been looking into called Living Room Conversation. And I'm really intrigued by that. And maybe you and I can even do something, or so
mm,
I'm looking for someone to
would
partner
love it.
because we just need to be able to talk with each other. And I think part of what, circling back to the origin of the beginning of our conversation about values, if we can model for our children that someone having a different point of view or a different set of beliefs is not an enemy, can we move toward curiosity without feeling threatened? Is there anything, because I know there's a lot of stories in the book. I was thinking of talking about the puppy story, but is there a story that sort of reflects that before we close, that looks
Sure.
at this possibility of curiosity toward another or open-mindedness? And if not a story from there, perhaps you have a
Well,
suggestion.
I think that's got to be in volume two. If God willing, there's a volume two. But here's a story that comes to mind immediately, and it's a true story. There was a wonderful, and I do understate when I say a wonderful Christian minister by the name of Dr. Fred Craddock, and I would add of blessed memory. He tells a story which I reproduce in Taking Miracles Seriously.
Available now.
His first trip to Israel, and the guide says such and such a miracle happened here. Craddock interrupts him with saying, I hope you don't mind if I have a different understanding. And immediately the guide responded, of course not. You can be sure if there's only one way to understand something, it didn't come from God. Whether a listener is comfortable with that word God or not, you can be sure if there's only one way to understand something, it's not important. It's not vital to the human enterprise. Or in Jewish tradition, we have a wonderful phrase, davar acher. It means another interpretation, not my right and your wrong one, another one. It ought to be intellectually defensible, but there's not only is the text multivalent, the human experience is.
Of course it is. So as we close, let's leave listeners with something inspirational, the whole conversation.
Or at least perspirational.
So, Michael, a thwarted comic as well. Not thwarted, you have brought so much humor
Well, I
to
don't think serious and severe are synonyms. I think serious and joyful fit too.
beautiful. And this is the thing that it kind of the undercurrent is that humans are just extraordinarily beautiful. I haven't met one yet, and thankfully I've been a therapist for a long time, so I have a lens that allows me to see through some of the awfulness that people manifest. I'm doing training now in internal family systems, which it adds another layer of understanding and
Huh?
compassion. But I also know that there's a universality in that we respond to kindness, warmth, love. We may reject it from our trauma. We may push all the good away if we're really in pain and hurting. But creating this collection of stories that can be read to kids. And by the way, the young at heart, I found the stories just so sweet. You're not talking down to anyone. They're well written and really interesting. Any kind of final thoughts about how to bring that kind of attitude to our conversations with kids and young and teens and one another, that curiosity, compassion, openness.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is the old bromide that we have two ears and only one mouth because we're supposed to do more listening than talking. But the second is what can we do in order to be in touch with the other's narrative and our own, and to realize that we're all on a journey that needs to be shared. And true story. Some of the listeners will recall the name Dr. Richard Leakey of the famous anthropology family Olduvai Gorge and the origins of the human story. He was once asked at a press conference, can you summarize everything you've ever learned in one sentence? And rather than saying, are you out of your something that the current president of the United States might say to insult the reporter, right? He said, yeah, I think I can. And this was his one sentence. One monkey is no monkey, meaning we live with a we, or we are not what we're meant to be.
Mm. Wow. We are we.
Hmm.
We are we. Beautiful.
I can't be I without you.
Yeah. We are interdependent,
Hmm.
overlapping.
And all too often we resent it, which is, I wish
Yeah.
we could get rid of
It's
that
humans
part.
are annoying and frustrating, and people don't always do what we want, and they have their own needs and wishes. And darn it, you're supposed to be subservient to whatever I feel like in the moment. But
Yeah, I love humanity, but not people.
yeah, there's that crazy. I love humanity and I hate people.
Hmm.
We love people around here. And Michael, you have done decades and decades of support, encouragement, inspiration all through this lighthearted, this light touch, a lot of joy, a lot of reassurance. You have been a real, what is it, rock that I have been able to lean on over the years, and I'm forever grateful. And
I
please,
am forever flattered at that suggestion. Really. Thank you.
Michael was the first call I made when my mother passed. And anyway, it was quite a special moment. So thank you for showing up in the world as you are and do. And if you could let people know how they can learn more about your books and what you do.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
I do have this book available on Amazon, and actually Taking Miracles Seriously is also available on Amazon.
you read the title because not everyone will see
Sure.
this.
Oh, sure. People are like stories for young readers and readers who wish to stay young. That's the young people's book that just came out in October. Actually, it's eh, for people who want to stay young book. And the other one is Taking Miracles Seriously, A Journey to Everyday Spirituality. And it's a book I really enjoyed writing, not the least of the reasons being, I don't know if you know this about me, Susan. Before I became a rabbi, I briefly had a career as an academic teaching English and writing. And one of the things that there's a lot of poetry in here. And poems unlock something in addition to stories. Because a poem doesn't work unless I already know the truth of it, and the
Mm.
poet has connected me to that truth that I was inchoate. So, at any rate, I'm proud of both of them, and I'm delighted to worry about them. If someone wants to stay in touch, Rabbi Zedek, Zedek, at Emmanuel, EMANUELCONG.org, EmmanuelCong.org. And I would love to hear from people.
Awesome.
I love being with you.
And your website is rabbimichaelzedek.com.
.com. Although I know you're going to be shocked. I don't do a lot of updating of it and
Okay.
whatnot. And it's mainly got talks about the first book. I haven't even done a thing about it in terms of this new book, but thank you.
Everyone, thank you all for tuning in and listening. Michael, it's just been a joy to connect. I hope we can do more. And thank you. Thank you so much.
No. I'm back at you. Back at
Back
you.
very best. Bye for now. Hope you enjoyed that. I mean, story after story, you can tell that Rabbi Zedek, Michael Zedek is a very experienced storyteller, and I love sort of the struggle inside of him, almost like, but I have a story about that. And I do think that as I listen to him, I realize that we let our defenses down when we're listening to a story. We aren't so guarded. We're more receptive, and I think that's true with our children as well. It's why human beings have organized themselves and passed stories down through the generations and sat around campfires telling stories. This is how we are. It bypasses some of the protectors and resistance to taking in new understandings and insights. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've taken something away. Check out his work at rabbimichaelzedek.com. And of course, stay in touch with the work that we're doing at susanstiffelman.com. If you've enjoyed this episode or you're enjoying the podcast series, I know everybody's busy, but boy, oh boy, it's such a help if you could just leave a rating or a review, a comment, share it with a friend, and that's true for YouTube as well. We just want to reach parents with grounded support that's not AI generated. This is human stuff coming from my 40 plus years as a family therapist and a teacher and someone who's worked with thousands of families with great joy. That's my work. So stay in touch, be kind to yourselves, and remember, no matter how busy life gets, look for those moments of sweetness and joy. Stay well, take care, and I'll see you next time.